super handy to be able to track your progress with the, I don't want to use the word notoriety, but the, it's how many people know you that are there. Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe not everyone knows what we do there.
Sure.
MMC, Michigan Music Conference, is in Grand Rapids every year. There's approximately 9,000 kids, teachers, parents all come into that area, and they have a competition. They have choirs and orchestra and all of that going on at the MMC. It goes from Thursday, Friday, and half-day Saturday. And they kind of take over Amway Grand and everything else. So there's a lot of booths there, and we decided 5 years ago that the guild needed representation. You've got all of these potential people that play piano that are associated with piano, and so we wanted to be sure that people knew there was a guild, because we're the best kept secret out there, right? Who ever heard of the Piano Technicians Guild? And you get that all the time, and people call and they go, like, and you say, well, I know that's right.
Got it. And then, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish up this business. After that, I'm going to throw it to Dan. He wants to make an announcement, and then I'm going to throw it to you. Thank you.
So then you try to tell them, they go like, don't try to sell me something, they don't want to, anyway. So this is our shot at getting influence, because they come from all over Michigan, even some of them outside of Michigan, but we get this chance. So we have this booth, and the booth has got, we got action models, we've got displays, we've got all kinds of stuff, and we don't just sit back and wait for people. We go out and we shake hands with people. We say, we got this tuning pin contest where $50 if you guess how many tuning pins are in this jar. And so we get the students, oh man, they just like $50, yeah. So they fill out our form and we have a big drawing at the end. But anyway, it's such a good thing to interact. You get new people every year, and you got people now who are at least heard of the Piano Technicians Guild. We have a scroll with every one of the chapters from Michigan on there. We're not just touting, Detroit. We're representing all of Michigan's chapters. So that's what we do. And I think it's worth every dime we pay. We do get a discount because anything goes wrong with their pianos, guess who's on the hook to do that? Right. So we do bring our tools and things because, believe me, you step in the door, you don't even get to the booth, and they go, hey, we got a problem in the room so-and-so, would you take care of it? So, yeah. So we get a big discount because we do take care of problems.
What are the dates? Did you have the dates?
I can only say mine usually takes place in the 3rd week in January. The big problem is that's icy times to drive
in Grand Rapids.
That's an issue.
21st, 22nd, 23rd of January.
Thank you.
Yep.
So that's my spiel on that, and I think it needs to be kept going. What did we spend last year? Do we have that?
So, yeah, I can tell you that I know that the 3 reimbursements was around $1,800, $1,900.
Okay.
I don't remember the total spend, but we can of course pull that up.
And some of the local chapters, they come in.
Yeah.
But some of us from Detroit, we need to have housing. We need to stay in a hotel, whatever.
Mm-hmm. We also get that Gene applies for the grant through the home office.
Yes.
So they subsidize about half of the event for us. So we're still spending money. It's still a money spend, but it's not as significant as the total price. Something to keep in mind because it's our money. So
The question arises, do we continue?
Right.
It comes out of our treasury.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. I mean, really, don't we want people to know we exist? That we're different than just anybody?
Just for my mental clarity, if you're a member of this chapter, can you just raise your hand? Just so I can see. Okay. This chapter, yeah. Just so I can see who's here. Okay, thank you. Because those are the voting voices. It's not the total party. So I mean, it sounds like Cal wants to put forward the continuance of doing MMC. Is there anyone to second that?
I'll second it.
Okay. So then we move to a vote, right?
We could have further discussion.
We can, yeah, we don't have to set a budget today. We'll do that at the next meeting. That way we can really dig into the numbers. But if we could just vote to at least look into that, I guess is what we can do, right? Also, pay attention because Nelson's on the Zoom. So all in favor, raise your hand, please. See, we got a yes from Nelson. It looks, and all opposed. It looks like the yeses have it. Let's move on to the next order of business. That's the MMC. Officers. It is time to vote for officers. So same thing. Is there anybody here who is considering taking the position of president, vice president, secretary, or treasurer? If anyone wants to, we've got Diana out of Nelson. So she's already an officer. Thank you. Nelson, would you like to be president or? He can't hear a thing I'm saying. That's convenient. So, okay. So then I do have to put this. This is something I actually have to put to a vote. If no one wants to, step into one of those roles, I totally understand. But what we then have to do is vote on allowing the current slate to continue for the next year. Our bylaws only allow a 1-year maximum. So can we have someone to put that forward and then second it and do that? I'm not good at these rules, these Nelson rules or Murphy rules or whatever they're called. Robert's, yeah, whatever it is. Nothing?
Bill? Make a proposal. I'll move that we should continue with the current officers for another year.
Beautiful.
I'll second.
And a second. All in favor? All opposed?
Whoever's opposed to the next president.
Nelson, I couldn't catch that vote. Sorry, one more time. It sounds like the yeses have it. So we're going to run one more year on the same slate. Okay, thank you. Perfect. Okay, that's 2 of the orders of business. I wish I had my phone, but it's on Zoom. There was one more. Bylaws. We will bring this up at the next meeting, actually. So I got a chance to look at our bylaws, and they're kind of in the way they're set up is for somewhere between 6 and 12 meetings a year. And so we're not meeting our deadlines, our goals. And so this is something we need to consider if we're going to stay with 4 meetings a year. The deadlines are no longer fitting with our current schedule. So I'm not saying for this time, but it's just, I want to plant this in your heads while you're here. We may need to adjust deadlines in the bylaws, meaning we will have to create a committee and then go through and do the appropriate channels of that to change those bylaws to fit our current load with our current structure. That's what I'm looking for, with our current structure. So it's just something to plant in your heads, to think about. We don't have to do anything with it now. And I think that as actually, since we don't have a delegate report, that's what I'm missing. That's what I'm freaking out about. Since we don't have a delegate report, that's my last order of business. So then from there, are there any other new topics of business that we need to discuss, Dan?
Well, I just had a thought
Yeah.
about this last topic.
Oh, sure.
Is it a possibility or realistic or practical for us to do 6?
I like it.
2 more meetings, I would go for that.
Yeah, I like that too. I would even, what I'd like to do, to be honest with you, this is just totally an opinion, but I would love to see at least one concentrated meeting where it is just digging through the kind of business side of things. It's going to be boring. It's going to be food related. It's got to be at least kind of fun, but it's going to be like a long meeting of just covering all this business so we can kind of catch up. And then maybe after that, switch to like 6 to 8 meetings. I do agree with you there. Is that a proposal?
Yeah, if we get that far.
Okay, sure.
I would second a proposal if one is being made to do 6 meetings.
6 meetings,
Yeah,
sure.
4 seems like-
Yeah, with 2, I think I can hold a vote on it. Is that right? Does someone know that? So then then we can vote to move to 6 meetings a year. Is that where we're at? All in favor?
I'm in favor.
We've got in favor there. All opposed? Okay. So yeah, it looks like the yeses have it. So we will move to 6 meetings per year. Awesome. Thanks. Thank you so much. Any other new topics?
May I comment?
Please.
6 meetings a year means 6 things we have to present.
Mhm.
And if no one steps up and give presentations, those are gonna be very dull meetings. I mean, if someone wants to present something, this is what we need. We need people willing to present any topic that has to do with them.
Mhm.
So if we don't have people stepping in, you can say we can have 20 meetings, but for what? And that's the issue that we're facing right now, is we need people that are willing to give a presentation. It just doesn't have to be a great long, I mean, 45 minutes, 30 minutes, something like that, on something you do or know would be very helpful. And that's the issue with the meetings, is you can have as many as you want, but if we don't have anybody giving anything, it's gonna be boring.
Let me ask this of the group while we're here. I know some of you aren't here every time, and some of you here are here every time. Would it help if I built a maybe a committee of 4 or 5 people to say, hey, this is the group of people who's going to set up, like, hey, this technical, or this time we're going to do this technical, and then, because like I look at it as 2 phases. There's the speakers who have to come in, there's the venue, there's the catering and all that, but then there's also these technicals. If I built a group of 4 or 5 of you who were saying, hey, here's the January, here's the March, here's the this and that, and here's the topics for those, who is willing to give a technical on those, would that be helpful, or would that be too much pressure for the scenario? Because I can't think of another way to get around it besides doing all the work myself, if I'm honest. That's what I'm trying to avoid. So, it's like, however you guys want to do it, let's do it, So if building a committee is what's helpful, I'd be happy to try to deputize some people to get things working, Cal and Dan. Let's go with Dan first. Sorry.
Suggestion, and maybe tonight, before we even leave, think of something that you are pretty good at, that you do, whatever, and just put your name down on something, and so we can contact you and say, hey, why don't you just make up a 30 or 45 minute presentation on something you like? And we can schedule it in one of our meetings. If you could just do that, give us some resources. It's hard to dig. If no one wants to step up, I know people don't want to hear from me anymore. I mean, forget it.
Dan.
All you people with
Nope.
all your experience, come on.
Dan's got a point here.
We used to have a committee like that
Yeah.
years ago.
Yeah.
And we'd set up the whole year.
Right. Did it seem effective?
It was.
Yeah.
We had a lot more members.
Sure.
And it seemed like more dealers were involved,
Mhm.
more manufacturers
Yeah.
were more involved.
Mhm.
And I don't know exactly, everything sort of dwindled a little
Yeah.
bit.
Definitely.
So, but one way we could find out about that is we did form some kind of committee to see if we could generate that.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it sounds like there's at least a little bit of interest in it. So if that's what I have to do, that's fine. Like I said, I can only be guided by input, so I can't just do everything out of a vacuum. So
Well, I'm willing to help you on that.
awesome. That's killer. Okay, so that's at least a couple things to kick to the next meeting. And then I still have to ask any other new topics for business at this moment that anyone can think of.
Sorry, I got one thing.
Yeah.
It's not guild business, but I was a member for a long time. I've got stabs of the journal up through 2024. If anybody wants them, they're welcome to them. I like the physical copies, but I'm not going to be looking them over anymore. So if anybody wants them, just let me know. You can have them.
Awesome. Thank you.
I don't know about that far.
Perfect. I think, Nelson, any other topics that you'd like to discuss? You're the only one on my Zoom, so that's not working. No chance. There you go. Yeah, go ahead.
With regard, can you hear me now?
Yes.
With regard to, a couple more meetings, I mean, there's possibility of holding one in 252.
Oh,
the,
sure.
warehouse.
Yeah, awesome. That's a great resource. I appreciate that.
If might get a little crowded with all the pianos and everything, but possibility anyhow.
Okay. Sweet. So that's it's a venue opening is what that is. That's a there's a yeah. So there's a spot in Pontiac. You've been to the warehouse before that Nelson and I work out of. He's basically saying that between his room and my room there, we can definitely make something work as well for technicals, for weekly shop, or for a meeting. So that's going to be an option on the table. I think that covers everything that we wanted to discuss for the business side. So at this point, I'm going to throw it over to Dan, who's got an announcement for his chapter or something. Keep passing that on.
Evening, everybody. I'm Daniel Bryson. I'm representing the Lansing chapter. I live in Lapeer, so this is kind of equidistant to where our chapter meets, and I'm hungry, so I show up wherever I can. And I am new to the role as of early this summer, but I got something exciting going to happen in Lansing next month. I wanted to extend that invitation to anybody in Detroit. I'll be doing the same to West Michigan and Northern Michigan if there's anybody up there. Our first meeting, our first technical of the fall, is going to be a very special guest from out of town. If you've ever heard the name Wim Blees, he's going to be in the area from Florida, and offered to be able to do a technical presentation for us. So we're very excited that on the Monday, the 14th of September, and this will be evening, it'll be held at Reader Pianos in Lansing, and Wim will be giving a presentation entitled "How to Tune a Spinet Like a Concert Grand." And I will be asking Steve to forward that information out to your email list so you can have that. I understand it's a little bit of a drive. It's entirely your discretion, but if anybody feels like coming, you'll be more than welcome. We'd love to have you. That is in the works. I'm hoping to do that. I am learning from Steve about cool things to do like this, and I thank you for that input. Jeremy.
I'll definitely be out of town.
But same question?
I may not be available during the time period will be recorded.
That's also a question to be answered, but I'm hoping that can be worked out. So thank you both for that. Yes. But he delegates some of it to you. Cal.
How many people know William Hughes? Anybody know him? Okay. You know he's been a very long time.
35 conventions and conferences at which he's taught.
Very active. He was one of the technicians in Hawaii for a number of years. He used to drive all those islands. I mean, this guy's been around, so he knows so much, and he's an active member of our national. So just so you know who it is.
Thank you for that, Cal. And I was also a first-time attendee to the National Convention this year, and it was an unbelievably good experience. And that's where I happened to connect with Wim. And the only other thing that I'd like to mention, because this is still an idea that's cooking, because I'm playing the card of I'm relatively new to the field and new to chapter leadership, so I haven't seen a lot of things, so I'm just going to start doing and see what happens. There's a possibility that we'd be able to have one of those all-day Saturday kind of technicals in November. That's what it's looking like. And if that were to happen, this is potentially a young man by the name of Ben Cross, who RPT, who has invented that powered voicing tool, if you've seen anything about that. Long story short, ended up having a surprise half-an-hour conversation with him on the phone. He loves to teach. He would love to get out and do this more often. He's willing to entertain the idea of coming to Michigan. I'd love to be able to host him with our chapter. And if that were to happen, I would love to somehow make that be open to and in partnership with Detroit. So if that is an idea of interest, probably offline, I'd love to have that conversation and see if we can add some more kindling to the fire to bring another great teacher to Michigan. And I will also offline, I would love to, if anybody is considering doing technical presentation and you'd rather not do it in front of a group of people that you know, we'd be happy for you to come to Lansing. And I'm sure that we could return the favor for what that's worth. So thank you very much. I'm going to hand this over to Linda. Continue. Okay.
Thanks, Scott.
Is this microphone still necessary? It is. Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Linda Sproul. I'm Chief Experience Officer with Solage Piano. I'm the fun portion of your meeting. You've all said you have to suffer through boring things, so hopefully I won't be anything boring for you. But honestly, just welcome and thank you so much. This is a fantastic turnout tonight. I want to make a special welcome and thank you to all of our guests who are here. Looking around the room, you see people of all ages, and I'm very, very excited to welcome some young people here. We have got a student in the back. His name's Isaac. I first met Isaac. Yeah, wave to Isaac, everybody. Isaac is going to be a senior in high school this year, and I first met him at MMC about a year and a half ago, and just struck up a conversation really with his mom, and then found out that he was interested in perhaps being a piano technician. So here he is tonight. So, just love to invite people. I love bringing everybody together. And Solage Piano has been in existence for 21 years this year. Our owner, Thomas, was born completely blind, but yet he has a degree in piano performance from the Baldwin Wallace Conservatory right outside of Cleveland. If you've never met him, I hope you'll get a chance to. He only just turned 42 years old. He has 4 showroom locations across the Midwest. You're in the fanciest, prettiest store. Hannah was at our Cleveland store last night. And we also have locations in Columbus and Pittsburgh. And Thomas is so generous. He not only... We will help you out with these 6 meetings that you have to do. I'll love to see you whenever. You can always count on Solage to provide you with a great venue. Thomas provides a pizza for all you guys, and happy to do that. And even thanks to Thomas, we've got a fantastic presentation on deck for you tonight as well. Recent memories, some of the previous PTG meetings that we've hosted. We brought in Ryan Ellison from Yamaha. We flew him in all the way from California for your chapter. Also, Indrik Lal from the Estonia Piano Company was here, and he flew in here all the way from Estonia. Who else have we had? Harach Turasane. He's a product specialist from Yamaha. So Thomas is very forward thinking, especially when it comes to piano technicians. So Daniel, with your all-day seminar that you're thinking, let me know. Solage would love to sponsor your lunch and help you get your people together up there. So if there's anything that we can do to be a resource for you, we're a very solutions, service-oriented company, and it would be a great honor to partner together with you to serve your clients. One favor that you could do for us, I have a QR code on your sign-in table and also one right here. If you could just open up your phone and point your camera at that and just click and give us a 5-star Google review. This showroom has been here almost 3 years, but you'd be surprised some people still don't know where we are. So if you could just take a brief moment to do that, that really helps us out. Any questions about Solage Piano before I move on to introduce Hannah? Okay, I'm not getting anything thrown at me. That's good. That's good. So we're very, very proud and honored to have Hannah Beckett with us this evening. Hannah has her own piano service company in Northern Virginia. So she's a registered piano technician. She's very busy. From reading her bio, I don't know how she has time to be here. We're very, very honored. She also is the editor and owner of Piano Buyer LLC, which is a very non-biased resource that we as dealers use all the time to refer our customers who are trying to get like some fair comparisons between brands. And also Hannah is not only a lifelong lover of piano, she's a student herself. She has taken it upon herself to go to many different piano manufacturers' facilities and get tours. And hopefully you'll tell us a little more about your professional piano technician network. I want to hear a little bit about that because it's a way where techs can still do some continuous learning, even if you've been at this for 50 years. So with that, please help me to welcome Hannah Beckett. Can you guys come closer? Oh no, somebody. I have a not very strong voice that will get lost to the back, so I like a close crowd as much as possible. That's great. Thank you. You guys are gonna get caught on the most. There we go. That's better. Thanks, guys. Okay, so I'll take 1 out of 6 of your classes for the year. I'm happy to be here. This is my first time in Michigan and Ohio, actually. I haven't done much of the Midwest. I like your pizza. I like your weather. I like to start by kind of learning from you guys a little bit. I have to travel and give presentations a lot, and part of my work with Piano Buyer is to know all of the markets as well as I can. So I'm interested to hear what your seasons are like. How often do you guys have to tune? What's your clientele like? This seems like a very populated area. Do you have a lot of musical venues? What can you tell me? I need it for data.
Well, we have Midwest weather, changes all the time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The
So job security, you have?
The seasons are construction and not construction.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, pianos are constantly going out with humidity changes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You have wicked winters, right?
We can.
Okay. Your summer feels fine to me. Is this unusual?
It's about normal.
Normal? I'm from the Northern Virginia area. It's 90 degrees and probably 100% humidity right now. So it's okay. Okay. Yeah, because you're pretty far north. Okay. Great. Well, thank you. That's helpful. How about musically? I mean, this festival that you mentioned sounds amazing. It sounds like you've got kind of a thriving culture. You obviously have strong dealerships, which is not the case in many places. So lots of musical activity, performances, things like that.
It's a very good musical area.
Nice.
There's Ann Arbor, which
Yeah.
is superb for all kinds of music.
Yeah.
And Detroit has Orchestra Hall with the symphony, and it has lots of jazz behind Orchestra Hall. Detroit's always had a great jazz
I love jazz.
legacy.
Yeah.
And the suburbs, well, most of the small suburbs, the towns have their own little music scene where during the summer they have concerts outdoors. I don't think any of that's unusual, but but there's Pine Knob north of here, and that's more pop and rock.
Okay.
There isn't any more rock left. So it's a vibrant music scene.
Yeah.
Not that I'm part of it anymore, but it's always Detroit's always been known for good jazz, good rock,
And Motown.
and well, yeah, that's a long time ago. But still, it's Aretha Franklin still reigns supreme.
As she should. Good. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you. I appreciate it. Who's familiar with Piano Buyer Press? And it's fine. No one can raise their. Okay, one in the back. Great. 2, 3. Okay, a little bit. Okay. Well, I'm gonna start from the beginning, give you a little bit of information about what it is, and then you'll see as I explain some of what I do. A lot of my job is interfacing with manufacturers and dealers, which is a little bit of a different hat that I've worn for the past couple of years. I'm a piano technician, and as we all know, our worlds are not always integrated for such a small industry. Sometimes technicians stay over here and manufacturers stay over here and dealers stay, and then there's teachers too. So having this job for the last 4 years has really forced me to
push into the other realms that I haven't been naturally introduced to. And in doing that, I've uncovered a lot of ways that the piano industry is slightly dysfunctional. And so part of what I'm doing now with Piano Buyer is hopefully helping to integrate all the different parts so that we work a little bit better. Because going forward, I think we really have to make some changes in our approach to the industry as a whole. You'll see in a minute, we'll talk about the numbers for the last 5 years, but the music industry is having a rough season right now. And so I'm going to give a little bit of a background on manufacturing, and then we'll go into kind of how we translate that into our work as technicians. So thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Larry Fine started Piano Buyer in 1980-ish. He was a North Bennett Street grad. Worked as a technician for a while and did not like it, but found that there was a hole in the marketplace for piano sales. And in the 1980s, it was kind of a turbulent time for the piano industry. And so he wrote a book called The Piano Book, which probably some of you remember when it came out. And it acted as a consumer guide for shoppers who were trying to make a decision about which piano to buy. This was kind of a complicated thing at that time because there was a lot of misinformation going around. Quality was not at its finest. And so part of what he was doing was setting out to be honest and tell the truth about different types of pianos. And to do that, he interviewed lots of technicians and got opinions on the brands that were available then. He had a rating system, published pricing information, stuff like that. So the book took off. It was a huge hit. He did a couple more editions, and then over the next 20 years, he turned it into a magazine and published follow-up articles. And then eventually, in like the mid-2000s, he took it exclusively online. So if you know about the piano book, the information that he coined in that book is still present in some of the articles on Piano Buyer. I'm finding as I do this presentation that some people don't realize that we've switched from a book to a web format. So that is like 10 years old information, but everything's online still and still accessible. So he retired in 2022. I'm the new Larry Fine, and so I've been filling his shoes for the last 4 years, working to figure out what angle to take Piano Buyer and how to best serve the industry so that we can have a healthy musical community, which it sounds like you guys have already. Another thing that we do is publish pricing for all brands, which is primarily what the dealers use to reference the new MSRPs. We've got an MSRP publication, and then we also have a piano pricing that we kind of consider like the street price of the piano, because in the US, no one sells on the retail price, which is unique. In Europe, the price is the price, but we love a deal here. So the prices are a little bit complicated. So that's called the suggested maximum price. So we publish that every 6 months. So basically all of this requires me to be very in touch with manufacturers, to be learning about their new products. And in doing that, I kind of took a deep dive into manufacturing as a whole, because when I became a technician, I kind of started, just really focusing on whichever piano was right in front of me. And I found that taking a step back and contextualizing over the course of the last 100 or so years of our manufacturing history has really changed my approach to both the way I service and the way I interact with my clients about it. So I'm going to take you through the history of manufacturing first. Some of this I'm sure you'll know. Maybe there's some new things in there for you. But here's our manufacturing timeline. I've broken it down into 4 distinct eras. We've got the golden era, kind of a 100-year time span from the 1850s to 1940s. This is when the piano was exploding. The second wave of the Industrial Revolution brought tons and tons of piano manufacturing to the US. Have you guys heard of Pierce Piano Atlas? Sure. You probably reference it all the time. That's a fascinating resource. I know we're usually looking for a specific serial number, but even just reading through it, it's astounding to see the amount of brands that all have listings from, I don't know how far back he goes, maybe 1880s, up until, the early teens. But there's tons all in the Midwest and up and down the East Coast. That kind of ended in 1921 with the stock market collapse. A lot of manufacturers did not make it through that time, and so that was kind of the first time we'd gone from kind of the big bubble effect where we've got lots of manufacturing and now we're consolidating. World War II further consolidated a lot of companies in 1914. That's another cool thing to see in Pierce Piano Atlas. Not cool, kind of sad. But there are no listings from 1940 to 1945. I mean, across the board, I think most facilities were doing wartime materials then. So in the 1950s, we had kind of a time of urbanization, and this is when people started moving around a lot, relocating. There was a demand for less of the enormous uprights and a lot more portable instruments. So this is when we started experimenting with plastics and other fun, not very quality parts, all in an attempt to make a shorter, cheaper piano. Introducing the spinet. I love that Wimbley's is teaching next round. Technicians have all different opinions. I'm going to talk a lot about spinets tonight, and he'll probably say opposite of what I'm going to say, but that's okay. You can pick which one you like and go with it. Baldwin has so many patents from this time. The patents are all public records, so you can look them up. But even as early as the 1930s, they were experimenting with plastics and trying to find ways to make parts that were not out of wood. And I had no idea that they'd started that early. I thought it was kind of a 70s thing. But you can actually go through and read sequentially every single issue that they had with spinet design and plastic parts. And the good thing about patents is you have to list exactly what didn't work and the problem that you're trying to solve and how you're going to solve it. So it's really quite educational to see how much focus they had on this one particular market. And I mean, obviously it worked because we still have tons and tons of Baldwin spinets and consoles on the market. Yeah. I think we've all had to pay our dues to that. Yeah.
The spinet, I think, is the hook in its title.
Okay, cool.
It's not focused.
Okay.
I'm just kind of using that as a reference. We all love to only tune concert grands, but most of us.
Maybe we're using aural skills. Let's hope that's what it is. As soon as you said that, I was like, oh no, I'm about to talk about how we all need to not be tuning spinets. Anyway, okay, thank you. Moving to the globalization era, this was kind of from the 1960s to the 90s. Yamaha came over in the 1960s and changed the market drastically. I mean, by this time, there were not that many American manufacturers doing very well anymore to begin with, but they could not compete with the high quality pianos that Yamaha was bringing in. And so they were trying to lower their prices as much as they could. But ultimately, Yamaha won, which we're all happy about, hopefully. 1980s brought in a lot of Korean pianos as well. So this was kind of a turbulent time for the market. It was a time of instability. No one really knew how to predict what the next wave of pianos was going to look like. In the 1990s, Europe was experiencing a lot of chaos in their manufacturing scene because this was the end of a couple communist eras for different countries. And so during the past 40 years, Germany had been divided in half. And so a lot of the East Germany and West Germany manufacturers had really struggled. Parts were on one side, a lot of the manufacturers were on the other. And so this was kind of a big time of restructuring for many of the brands that we still know today. This was also the case for Petrov and Estonia. They were both state-owned companies for a time that transitioned back to the original families. And so much of the 90s, again, was kind of a turbulent time with questionable quality. You could imagine as a manufacturer taking back a facility from a state, you're moving a lot of your old parts out, bringing new parts in, old work, so it's pianos from this era are kind of hit or miss, I guess. And then on top of that, we had keyboards coming in and a lot of rock music taking over the normal music scene that had been maybe more classically oriented. Casio and Roland both released their 88-key digital piano around I think one was in 88 and one was in 86. And that really propelled digital pianos forward in a way that has not stopped in the last 30 years. We'll talk about keyboards a lot more a little bit later. Then we move into what I call the China era, which was the last 20 years, 2000 to 2020. Chinese manufacturing exploded around this time. There was a high demand for pianos both in China and for them to be producing as exports for other companies. So we had lots of long-standing companies in Europe who had primarily focused on really high-quality instruments, maybe only a specific type of brand or a specific type of upright, realizing as they were going back into getting their manufacturing processes running, that they needed to be able to diversify and hit a broader market target. So they started making their cheap entry line pianos. And for those of us who remember that time, this was rough because the pianos were bad. They were all kind of, I mean, they're poor quality. Nobody really knew what the predictable lifespan was going to be on them. On top of that, we had stencil pianos. Does everybody know what a stencil piano is? It's like you can order a piano and put whatever name you want on it. It's just, yeah, they'll put your name on it. Yes, it's just an out-of-the-box piano. There's no manufacturer set behind it. There's a Cal piano out there. A lot of dealers did this. It was very fun to have your dealership and have your own name. Yeah, always terrible pianos. Okay, so then we also had a lot of progress made in the hybrid and digital piano area. And then by this time, digital pianos have really come to replace a lot of the entry line pianos, i.e. when someone would normally reach for a spinet, being a light, cheap piano, now they reach for a keyboard because duh. So that kind of ended in 2020. We really, obviously everything reset with COVID. But for the piano industry, this hit us in a really unique way. And I think it's the marker of us moving into a new era, which I have lovingly called total chaos because it's been an insane 6 years since then. I don't know what I'm going to call it, in 10 years when I can look back and actually see what's going on. But for now, I'm calling it the total chaos era. So in 2020, we had, COVID-19, sales dropped. They plummeted because no one was leaving their house, obviously. We all got tired of being in the house and bored. And so in 2021, sales spiked because everybody was going out and buying pianos. I don't know how much of that was happening here. In DC, it was insane. We just had whole families just coming in and say, we're going to lose our minds if we don't do something. So we're buying a piano. I enjoyed that year. That was a great year. 2022 was more of the same. And the manufacturers started thinking, oh my goodness, this is new, like pianos are back, everybody loves it, so we're gonna start overproducing because they had a long line of orders that they couldn't fulfill because of supply chain. And so we had this kind of stack of demand and not enough supply. And then by 2023, manufacturers had caught up and had overproduced. And then of course there was a huge drop in demand. Several things happened in 2023 to make the drop, but one of the biggest factors was China. The incentives that they had to study Western music were eliminated by a huge number. They kind of took out all of the educational incentives and replaced them with AI and digital focus. They just decided we're gonna do the tech thing and people don't need to be doing arts. It wasn't just pianos, it was a lot of other art studies, but essentially within 2 years, Chinese manufacturing had dropped 80% in China, which I just can't imagine. Apparently there's still just warehouses and warehouses full of pianos that they can't sell. It might be more by now because that was a number that I pulled in 2024, so it may even be 90% because not much has changed since then. So we have far less exports coming out of China, but we also have far less demand for the high-end things. They were buying a lot of European high-end pianos for the richer sections of the population, and that is also gone. So manufacturers who had kind of had a share market in China for a long time have lost that. And then on top of it, the Ukraine-Russia war has made things complicated for some of the Eastern European manufacturers. So basically, globally, we have a super depressed market. And then by 2024, we've got total reset. The US is now back in #1 as the #1 piano consumer in the world. So lots of manufacturers are looking to the US to say, okay, what do we do? We're all operating at a third capacity. Where's the demand gonna go from here? So to give you a rough idea of the numbers, this is the roller coaster ride we've been on in the past 5 years. These are in millions, so that represents the amount of units sold in a year. So we had $530 million worth of piano instruments come in 2025. That's how you would read that. This is from Music Trades magazine, which is a great resource for data. They mostly are looking at shipments and then as much information regarding recorded sales. Solich maybe reports their numbers annually to help them. But it doesn't represent the whole market because obviously there's the used market and there's nowhere to track that. But in general, I think this kind of accurately reflects what the market has looked like for piano sales over the last 5 years. In 2025, we had the lowest ever recorded number of acoustic pianos shipped to the US. They were half of 2015 levels and 1/5 of what we brought in 2005. Digital pianos, we brought in 188,000 units and acoustic pianos about 19,000. So this is bleak and pretty crazy. And as technicians, you may or may not have encountered any of this or know any of this, but this is what's happening kind of in the industry at large. And it puts us in an interesting position because we've moved from a quantity-oriented marketplace to a quality-oriented marketplace. Personally, I'm okay with this. I like quality. I like working on quality pianos. I would much rather prefer it than having, the pianos that are everywhere that are maybe only played every now and then. Plus, there's not that many of us anyway, so I don't know. I'm feeling good about the next season that we're going to go in. And this is something that's important. I want you to hear me when I say I'm not saying that the piano industry is dying. I know that this is kind of something that technicians can say a lot. It's not like it used to be, and that's very true. But what we're experiencing is a change in the market, not the death of the industry. So when we're looking at the market trend shifts, we're going from quantity-oriented to quality. So we've got everybody has a piano versus now people who have a piano intend to actually really use it. They're studying on it. They're taking lessons consistently. It's more of an actual instrument rather than just a piece of furniture that's in the home. We've gone from having lots of confusing brands to consolidated manufacturing. This also makes life a little bit easier. We don't have to try to remember which era the piano's from. Was this brand during the 2000s? Was it made in America still? Was it made by somewhere else? That's a confusing time when we're looking at sales. So I like having consolidated manufacturing. There's a lot less to keep track of, and we don't have as many low quality pianos circling the marketplace. Now we have quality digital pianos, which at least can play a pitch that is discernible and have repetition. Not to mention a lot of the digital features that are really getting so advanced now and helpful for getting kids really hooked on piano. So I thought I'd go over the manufacturers that are still producing today. I've broken them into 3 groups based on the output, manufacturing philosophy, and their place in the supply chain. We only have so many to go over, but boutique manufacturers represent the elite ones that we all hope that we can work on someday. They're the high quality, high cost ones. They're only making around 200 pianos a year. These are super small factories. I don't know if anyone has gotten a chance to go do any factory tours. If you do get a chance, I highly recommend it. It's so educational. They're specializing in, you know, a lot of high-end concert instruments, sometimes only grands, sometimes very high-end upright pianos with unique cabinetry. And they are dependent on the supply chain, which is kind of difficult for them right now, especially, you know, if you're looking for a company to source hammers and parts and key sets and soundboards. Obviously, you're going to be at the mercy of the supply chain. So if there's inflation or high demand, those costs really affect the end price that the user is going to get on that instrument. So they're in a little bit of a bad spot there, and it leads to some inflation that bigger manufacturers don't experience. These are the companies that fit in this. I think I got everybody on here. There may be some that aren't represented, but we know Sauter, August Forster, Steingraber are all in Germany. Estonia is in Estonia. Fazioli in Italy. Bosendorfer, of course, in Austria. These are primarily family-owned companies still. You know, of course, Bosendorfer's not, but they're on their 5th or 6th or 7th generation child to run the company. And it's wonderful to go because you get to really experience a lot of the tradition and hand craftsmanship that they're so focused on. For them, it's less about an action feel and more for them, it's tone crafting. They really each have a distinct sound that they're going for. And that's kind of their whole focus, that they protect that at all costs. And that means a lot of times they're not interested in doing mass production or even upgrading their manufacturing very often. I was just at August Forster in April, and they were moaning about the fact that they just had to buy a sanding machine because the guy who had done their sanding for the last 70 years finally retired, and they were like, he was so much better than the machine. It's like, oh my gosh, this poor guy is sanding his whole life. Anyway, full range manufacturers are, they're the middle tier of the marketplace. They've got multiple tiers involved. They've got a low quality entry line, they've got a mid-range, and then they have their high quality line. They're only making, you know, anywhere from 500 to 2,000 pianos a year. And their current philosophy is to stay alive. These are the ones that are the most in danger right now with our current market trends. They've got a lot of costs that they have to sustain because they've got 3 different lines. A lot of times that means they have a manufacturing facility in one country and a manufacturing facility in another country, which allows them to make their mid-tier with maybe less labor costs and a little lower quality products. But they're in trouble. They're having a hard time. They also have to match their quality standards across that broad range. And I think in the past 5 to 10 years, that entry-level line is where you see the biggest change. We've really left the early 2000s era where it was normal to have cheap parts and everybody was doing a new piano. And these manufacturers who are producing an entry-level line are still producing them in China, but we have so much competition now, they're really paying attention to quality. And so that entry line has changed so much in the last 10 years. If you're one of the people who maybe played it 20 years ago and hated it, I would encourage you to keep checking back in on the latest models that are available, because a lot of times they're great options now and they're really paying attention to the quality and making revisions. Some of these companies will have the piano kind of assembled in China and then taken to Germany and then finished or regulated or tuned before it goes to the dealer. Sometimes they'll have it fully assembled in China, but then it's got to be voiced, or, you know, it's some combination of that. But pretty much every major brand is going to have an entry-level line now that I think is worth considering and worth keeping up with. Their place in the supply chain, they're pretty self-reliant, but still dependent on the supply chain to some extent. In this category, we have people like Bechstein, who's making their own hammers now. They're really moving towards as much independence as possible to kind of give themselves a bit of insurance around global politics. But then you also have some companies that are maybe producing only 500 and they still have to outsource a lot of their parts as well. These are the ones that fit that category. Mason and Hamlin and Steinway, obviously here. Bechstein and Schimmel and Blutner are all in Germany, and then Petrov is in Czech Republic. Okay, the last category is high volume manufacturers. These are mass-produced pianos. Probably they're capable of producing anywhere from 50,000 to 150,000 a year. People are not producing that much right now. I think everybody's operating at maybe half or a third of what they could actually produce. But Pearl River is in this category, and they're the Chinese manufacturer that does a lot of the entry line piano work for the full range guys. And their facility is 3 million square feet. They can produce 150,000 pianos a year, which is insane. I can't imagine. And they are primarily independent in the supply chain. They're making their own action parts. They're making their own hammers. Oh, they also, I forgot the philosophy category. They're largely corporation run, and they're also able to produce digital products, player systems, silent systems. They really can do it all. Obviously, we know Yamaha's in this category. Kawai is here, Yongcheng, and Weber. And that's it. Samick used to be in this category. Samick's kind of gone at this point. So it's a smaller category that we're working with, which again means more quality. Okay, so 20 years at a glance. In 2005, we had 75 manufacturers distributing in the US. In 2025, we have 25 manufacturers distributing. And that's really only parent brands. I didn't count all the sublines from the people who are producing multiple ranges. We have 36 independent manufacturers from China and Korea in 2005. Today, we've only got about 10. In 2005, we had dealers everywhere. There were lots of piano dealers. And in 2025, we have a pretty major consolidation of dealerships. Lots of the rural ones were not able to sustain the sales drops from the last couple of years. Obviously, you guys are doing great. You've got a strong music community here, but that's not the case in many areas of the country. I don't have numbers for that because nobody thought to track how many dealerships we have, but I can tell you I know a lot have closed. I'm sure you guys have heard of other ones closing as well. So this means in general, it's going to get harder to buy pianos, and there's going to be maybe some more travel time involved for people in rural areas. So how does this apply to us? The major takeaway from this is that we are uniquely positioned to be a source of information and market guide as our clients need to upgrade pianos. As we're looking into the future of buyers, we have people who really care about getting the right piano. And they're going to be more information driven. They're going to be doing a lot more research than normal, which is why Piano Buyer exists. But it also puts technicians as kind of the first line of defense. A lot of times we're the first ones that people are going to ask, oh, what do you think about a new piano? You know, what type of thing should I buy? I've always found that technicians, we love learning the hand skills, but we don't necessarily talk about the business and marketing side of what we do quite as much. So this next section is kind of a roundtable discussion of how we approach our clients when it's time to have an upgrade conversation. And there's two ways that we typically encounter this as technicians. One, everybody knows about, the DOA. Is that what you guys call it? I don't know. I've never heard a term for this outside of dead on arrival.
PSOs, POSs?
Yep, I know that one. One that you can say to your clients, though. I've heard like gotta go condemn a piano. That sounds equally bad. Yeah, so I just call it the DOA. We've all walked in on this. The piano's completely dead. There's nothing you can do. So obviously we're going to be having a conversation about a new piano. When I was learning piano technology, this was very challenging for me to figure out the language to say how to communicate these things in a way that kind of still kept me as an expert source while not putting my client at odds. And as we all know, there's so much sentimentality wrapped in these old pianos. Sometimes it can get actually quite unpleasant. We can exchange horror stories in a bit. So that's the one that's obvious that we walk into. The other one that we walk into, which I think we don't take enough advantage of, is the objective analysis. So less straightforward than analyzing a structural failure, providing an objective analysis is the process of assessing your client's needs alongside the capabilities of their current piano. So when there's nothing to point to, this conversation is kind of tricky because at least when the pin block is dead, you can demonstrate, look, I'm turning the pin and it's going right back to where it came from. You know, there's nothing I can do. An objective analysis is kind of the process of sitting your client down and saying, I think you have the wrong piano for your needs, and we need to talk about what I'm going to recommend for you to do next. The DOA is a little bit more subjective. When we're looking at the piano, it's process-oriented. We're focused on an individual issue. I can point to this specific thing and say, this can't be fixed. Often it's isolated. It focuses on the individual piano instead of looking at the general manufacturing era and placing it in context. And then a lot of times that conversation is influenced. We're responding to the owner's preconceived ideas. Sometimes we're at the mercy of them saying, I thought this, I thought that, and you're in a position where you're responding instead of being proactive and leading the conversation with a lot of education and information that they haven't heard of. An objective analysis, instead of asking, can it be fixed, says, should it be fixed? So this is a goal-oriented approach. We consider many data points. We're focused on the big picture. We're looking at the client and the piano. What are the needs of the home? What's it primarily being used for? It's contextualized. We're aware of external factors for both the piano and the owner. And it's realistic. It reflects knowledge of real-world value. And sometimes getting people to understand the difference between market value and sentimental value is very challenging. An objective analysis starts with asking these three questions. And after kind of changing my philosophy towards this approach with my own clients, I have landed on these three questions as kind of the way I can orient myself around that conversation. So when I'm at a piano that I think, maybe this is the wrong piano, I start by asking myself, what's the lifespan of the piano? What function does the piano serve? And what's the value of the piano? So let's get some definitions in before we move on. I'm going to define lifespan as the amount of time a piano can be expected to perform according to manufacturer intent. This is a different way of looking at lifespan than what most people do. The piano does not have to crumble for it to be gone. Unfortunately, I wish it was that clean cut, but it's not. Looking at the piano as a product that was made with a specific intent helps us to communicate to our clients better about expectations. At Ohio last night, somebody said service life is another term that I thought was great. We can say the amount of service life that you can get out of the piano. And obviously, this is such a range, you know, you can give or take depending on how well it's kept up, the environment that it's in. But we have to start with some kind of range in order to have this conversation. Function we'll define as the category of use a piano is expected to fulfill. Obviously, we know there's the pianos that get played one time a year at Christmas. There's pianos that are played hours every day in a studio. So there's different categories of use for each type of piano. And then value. Again, the real world, not sentimental market resale value of the piano. I talk about value a lot because I think there's a lot of technicians who are also maybe confused about value. Piano Buyer has a depreciation schedule where you can go and see kind of the rate of depreciation that you would have on a new instrument to now. It's sort of a helpful tool, but I have found it misused more than used correctly. Market value is not about depreciation. It's about looking at your area and saying what else in this category is being sold and for how much. That's really the only way to figure out value, because it doesn't matter what the price tag says. It matters what will someone actually pay me for this. So I always encourage piano technicians to study market value more than they do. That's a whole other topic. But I've got some resources that I'll send your way if that's something that interests you. But that can also be a helpful thing that we can give to our clients when they say, okay, what should I sell this for? Before having that conversation, I'll hop on the used market. I'll say, okay, I'll pick on a brand. This is a Young Chang from the early, it's from 2001. What else is on the market and what's it being posted for? Or is there any history of it having been sold and for how much? And that's how you can start the conversation and say, well, I saw this, 10 days ago, this one popped up, it sold for this much. I would price it, according to that, because we have data to show that that's a viable market. Okay, so approaching lifespan, function, and value. These are the different questions that you'll have to cover. Obviously, lifespan, what era was it made in? Are we in the globalization era? Are we in China era? Kind of what was going on in the broader sense when it was made. What market was it originally designed for? And does this company still even exist? A lot of the times it's probably going to be no. If we had 75 brands listed before, there's really not that many left. Function, who is playing the piano, what level of repertoire are they playing, and how reliable is this piano? So that's really not even looking at the piano, that's looking at our clients. Are we in a home where it seems like music is kind of a thing already? Are they just starting out? Is this someone who's really proficient? And what are they playing on? And how is the piano going to actually serve their needs? And then value, does piano have actual market value? What's the sentimental value? And then the most important one is, what is the cost to repair versus the cost to replace? And how do those two numbers compare with each other? The car industry does this really well. When we have totaled a car, it means the cost to replace whatever happened is more than what its market value is, so we don't fix it. That's not always the case in pianos, but I do think we need to bring a little bit of that information with us when we're approaching some of the repairs, where it would be easy to say, yeah, we need to do a whole repinning job on this piano. Well, if that's going to be $500, is the piano going to fetch $500 on the marketplace? And how does that compare? And is that a conversation you should have with your client before recommending the job? So I thought we would do some case studies. These are all scenarios that I'm sure we've been in before. These are ones that stand out from my clientele. I'm going to walk us through a lifespan evaluation as we're working on giving an objective analysis. So the piano we're working on is a Sojin Grand. Who knows a Sojin? Anybody? Oh, yeah, sorry. That's a bad day. The pitch is, of course, stable at 440. Dang it. Structure is fine. We've got no bridge or soundboard cracks. The action is working, but it has pinning problems in the whippings and the hammer flanges. The overall assessment, it feels awful and it sounds awful. The client is a piano teacher who's still working in her 60s. So let's say this is your first appointment. You're sitting here, you're assessing all of these things. We have some problems. Let's take a look at what was happening with Sojin, which was a company from Korea. We can't look up the serial number because Korea didn't do any serial numbers. But we can assume this probably came over in maybe somewhere between the 80s and the 2000s. So we're already at 2020. Let's call it 30 years. We're looking at a 30-year-old piano, super low quality, kind of working, but really not something that you want to work on. The objective analysis is going to say, if we're looking at it goal-oriented, the piano is a consistent part of Marsha's life. She plays and teaches and will probably continue until her death. She needs a reliable instrument as she enters the last phase of her life. So looking at lifespan, does this piano spell reliable? No. So the conclusion is Marsha's going to have to buy a new piano eventually, whether this one gets fixed or now in 3 years. What does that say? Or in 3 years when it becomes unplayable. Contextualized, this is a low quality, mass produced piano meant for a quick sale during a time of high demand. The conclusion we can make from this is this piano has totally served its purpose. It's lived for 30 years. That's probably all it was ever intended to live for anyway. So that's kind of a good thing that we can present to the client and say, this piano has done a great job, and now let's consider the next one. Realistic about value, this piano has absolutely no resale value. The market is flooded with these old instruments. Actually, I'm curious, do you guys know, like Facebook Marketplace, what are people tossing?
I see most listings of people saying, please come.
Please come and take my piano. It's free. Yeah. And what are the brands? Okay. Yep. Okay.
So Mark, when they ask you, what are you going to do with the piano, when you tell them, putting it in a dumpster.
In a dumpster?
They don't like that.
Well, we'll cover that in a minute. There's ways of getting around that one. Okay, so we all know the market is flooded with these. They're not going to get any money for it. In fact, they may have to pay someone to come and get it. So we need to talk to Marsha about this. It's time to sit her down and have a conversation saying, you know, I've worked on your piano. These are my observations on it. And I really think that you should consider upgrading because this piano is really starting to show its age. I love this one. Everybody understands what that means. It resonates really well. And it introduces the concept of lifespan because no one knows that pianos don't last forever. This is a thing here too, right? Yeah, okay. So yeah, as soon as you say that, there's a moment where they're like, oh, I didn't know pianos could not work anymore. And you're like, yeah, definitely. And this one was only meant to last for about 30 years. And we're at that time and things are starting to not go well anymore. And so you have to decide what we're gonna do with the next steps. Based on this piano's age and manufacturing quality, you may want to consider an upgrade soon. You may want to consider upgrading to a piano that's more reliable. I love the word reliable. Everybody gets reliable. With cars, we know if we want a certain outcome, we have to have something that's predictable. And so looking at a Sojin piano that's 30 years old, we really don't have a way to predict it because it wasn't a company that was around for very long. We don't have data to know how much longer it's going to be until it crumbles. Maybe we do the pinning job and it's okay for another 10 years. Maybe we do the pinning job and then the bridge completely cracks wide open in another 10 years. And then you're kind of chasing your tail on these repairs over and over. And meanwhile, Marsha needs something for at least the next 20 to 30 years. The piano has outlived its functional lifespan. Again, going back to helping people focus on the overall goal for what they want for the piano instead of just the piano itself. I could fix this issue for you, but I can't guarantee that it will buy you more time with this piano. That's one of my favorites. And then there are some great brands represented in this area, which you guys can say you have such a good spread of options here. Whether it's used or new, it's easy to say, you know, we've got dealerships here. Here's the brands that we have. Here's some of my favorites. It wouldn't be hard to get something new. A lot of times people just have absolutely no idea where to start. And so leading with that information kind of makes the idea a lot more approachable to them than it would otherwise. Because Marsha probably got that piano at Costco, right? And you don't want her doing that again. Anyway, that's my real client, by the way. She went out and got a GC from Yamaha and loves it and is super happy. Anyway. Case study 2, function. Our favorite, the Leicester Spinet. And the spinets are always still stable at 440. I have a theory that when a piano gets really old, it just kind of settles at 440 as kind of the resting place, but it doesn't mean that it's alive. Do your pianos settle at 440, or is that just like my area?
We get too many humidity changes.
Oh, in my area, the spinets are always at 440, and I'm just like, it just gave up. I think fluctuation shows life. I don't know. Anyway, the structure is fine. There's no bridge or soundboard cracks. The action's working as well as any spinet does these days, which means it's clicking and there's elbow parts flying everywhere. It feels awful and sounds awful. And your client is a mom of 4 musical kids, all taking lessons on multiple instruments. This one's pretty easy for us to approach as technicians. I mean, if you're in a room, there's violins on the wall, there's guitars on the stands, there's repertoire on the piano covering, you know, Mary Had a Little Lamb up to maybe some intermediate repertoire. It's pretty easy to assess and say, okay, this is not the piano for you. Having that conversation with your client means you have to gather all of your data first. So the goals are the piano is played multiple students every day. They'll need a functional piano for many years that will support beginners and intermediate students. The conclusion is this family wants their kids to have the opportunity to become skilled musicians. Our analysis shows this piano was designed with the same intended use as a modern-day keyboard, which means it's a starter instrument. It's a 50-year-old starter instrument too. Whoop. This family does not need a starter instrument. They're already serious about music, so they need a long-term piano. And it is realistic. This piano cannot be improved and has no monetary value at all. Tuning at this point, we'll see what Wim says. I think it's just organizing pitches, and it doesn't even necessarily improve the overall tonal characteristic of the piano. So when we sit our client down to talk about this, it's good to focus on the family's goal. This one's in the function category, so we really want to communicate functionality as key to a student's growth. Most of the parents don't play piano. They just have their kids doing it. The kids aren't going to give them feedback or say anything. So I'll approach this by saying, this piano is limiting your children's progress on their studies. You know, I can see that there's music on the piano here. There's no way your kids can be landing these Chopin trills on this Leicester spinet. We need to get you something better. This piano was designed to be a starter instrument. Your kids have already outgrown this piano. Particularly with spinets, I'll say, you know, this was the precursor to the keyboard. And so if you replace this piano with a keyboard, you would still have to upgrade from the keyboard because that's really just for the first few years to see is this something that's going to stick or not, unless you're getting something really fancy. This piano cannot support the things they're learning in their lessons. A lot of times drawing attention to the fact that they're throwing away the student fee is helpful to help them see, like, you're really wasting your money giving them lessons here and then having them come practice. There's no progress being made. And then I always ask, especially if it's a busy household, can I help you find a piano that will allow your children to grow musically? And this is the part that I think is so helpful for a technician to say, because we know their piano, we know the situation. Telling a mom of 4 kids, it's time to go, you know, go buy a new piano, see you next time. She's never going to have the bandwidth to figure that out. So I always say, can I help you? And that changes the conversation from a little bit deer in the headlights to, okay, yeah, this is something that we could manage. And then I can say, you know, I can suggest these certain models to you. I can give you a budget. We'll cover that in the next section. But volunteering yourself as a source of guidance, it doesn't have to be a huge time commitment from you, but it can really take someone from knowing they need to buy a piano to actually buying a new piano. The last one is manufacturing quality has increased a lot since the 50s. Let's find something better and affordable. People really understand manufacturing quality, and I think helping them see the piano as a product rather than this super sentimental thing that somehow has a life of its own helps them kind of move away from any kind of sentimental value that they might have. Okay, the last one is value. This one's so hard. This is grandma's piano, random console from the 60s, probably a Kimball. I love hating on Kimball. It's my least favorite brand ever. The pitch is 430. We've got some hairline bridge cracks, tuning pin corrosion. The action is working. The overall assessment is that it feels awful and sounds awful. And the client is a third generation owner, just bought his first home and moved grandma's piano in last week. We've all had this happen, right? They're so excited. They open the door, just got a house, just got a piano. And then it's this awful thing that is sort of kind of working, but will require lots of money to, I guess, fix. And so this is a tricky conversation, especially when it was inherited. But we got to do the analysis anyway. Let's be goal-oriented in our approach. While not played much at the moment, the goal is for the piano to be part of a home the way it has always been. I always find that people who are in this category are maybe returning to music. They probably were in school for a while and dropped it and then got married and then had kids, and now they really want to get back into it. So it's kind of, it's like a pilgrimage for them to bring grandma's piano back in. So it may not be something that they're going to be tuning a lot or wanting to maintain a lot because it's kind of a hobby. So my conclusion from that is a piano that requires minimal upkeep would be ideal for this household, rather than something that's always going to be causing problems as you go down the lifespan hole. This piano was a good option at the time, but there's now better options in the current marketplace. The conclusion is a very cheap quality used piano would be more reliable long term. Doesn't have to be anything crazy. And then getting this piano working well will cost far more than the piano's worth, and even then the end result is not great. So the conclusion is putting money towards a new piano is a better use of those funds. Having this conversation with your client is really about aligning expectations. This is going to be the first time they've heard this information because the family lore is that it's super valuable and grandma traveled all over the US with it and sang and concertized, and so you get to be the one to pop that bubble, which can be difficult, but helping people align expectations is the best way to get them at least prepared for the financial investment that's coming at them. And I think we really owe it to our clients in this position. You know, they're often young and they don't have a ton of money to throw at a piano long term. So I really think it's good to get them prepared ahead of time. And even if they don't decide to upgrade, you know, that year, if they know in 5 years you're going to have to do something, they can at least start planning for that and setting money aside if that is a goal for them. Anyway, some of the scripts that I use for this conversation, all pianos are valuable when they're new, but unfortunately they depreciate in value over time. We can talk about this piano was made in this era, wasn't a great quality era, and now it's just really past its expected lifespan by at least 20 years. And so again, any money we put into it, we have no way of predicting if that's going to come back. If making music was your grandmother's goal, this instrument isn't going to support it for very long. I like to try to take the piano out of the equation when I'm having these conversations. Let's talk about music more than the piano, especially if there's a lot of sentimental value there. Pianos are basically machines. There aren't many machines from the 50s still running. It's very possible we can find a used piano that would be more reliable and won't break the bank. And then at a certain age, routine service can't improve pianos anymore. Let's find something that can be maintained. So again, we have that invitation to, I can help you with this process. So the next steps are always going to be them asking, well, what do I do now? I think our job is to simplify the process as much as possible. Again, navigating the piano world can be quite tricky, and sometimes I think technicians lose track of this because we're so used to it, we're in it every day. But it really can be overwhelming for people to figure out what piano they're supposed to be getting. I mean, the price range goes from free on Facebook Marketplace to $600,000 Bosendorfer. So where do we land on that spectrum? So I like to tell them what to expect financially. I'll give them just a brief overview of what the market looks like right now. Say, You've got your used options, you've got your new options, there's this category. We'll do that on the next slide, but that's kind of how I start. Then I'll make a recommendation. I certainly have brands that I think do some things better than others, and other brands do those things better than others. So it's always important for you to form a professional opinion. I think this also speaks a lot to your expertise and helps convey to your client that you really are equipped to help them with this. It's a big trust move when they hear that you are up to date with the market. And then volunteer for additional guidance, which can be, they go shopping and they say, I'm stuck between these two brands. Which one do you like? And then, if you have an opinion, you can share it. If not, you can point them to some of the piano buyer resources that we'll talk about later on. So today, our new piano market, and again, this is just new pianos, not used, but our new piano market is broken into 3 categories. So it's pretty easy to explain this to a client. You've got your entry level, you've got your mid-grade, and then you've got your high-end. And in general, your price ranges for uprights are around 7K to 15K, grands 15 to 30 for the entry level. The lifespan on those, we're calling 15 years pretty easily. Certainly you can say more, but we'll use our service lifespan or expected lifespan is that range. When I'm talking with people, I usually start with lifespan, and I'll say, let's talk less about which specific piano and talk more about how long do you want to have that piano. Is that piano going to be a 15-year thing? Is it going to be a 30-year thing? Do you want to have to go shopping again, or do you want to pay a little bit more and get something with more lifespan on it? And that can really help narrow the options as you help them navigate all of the different brands that are available. This entry level includes most manufacturers' lowest line, the entry level. And again, I'm going to say you should really keep up to date with what the latest options are. Here we've got, Yamaha's entry line is the B series. Compare that to Schimmel's entry line, the Fridolin line. Also here, they've got 2 or 3 of them. And see what the different characteristics are. Obviously, there's going to be a different in quality, but there's a complete tonal change between the 2 brands. So then you can start talking to your client, say, okay, do we like a crisp, clear tone? Do we like a really warm, fuzzy blanket tone? What are you looking for? And then you can say, okay, we've got these 2 options. I think you should try both and see what you think. Mid-grade category is 15 to 30,000 for uprights, 20 to 80,000 for grands. It's such a range. I wish it wasn't that broad, but we're talking about 5'1" pianos up to all the way maybe 7-foot something pianos. And those are going to be suitable for most musicians. Most professional use will be happy on something like that. That lifespan, we're looking at 30 plus years. So that's the type of piano that I'm saying, okay, if we're going to get this is going to be, the piano you're going to have for the rest of your life, not for generations and generations to come, but for your life, then we're going to be looking at mid-grade options. So then you're going to be comparing midlines. Here they've got Schimmel Wilhelm is the midline. That compares to some of the other Yamaha brands. Also some used pianos in this category. What do you have out there that's used? Europe. Do you have the Petrov is new, right?
Yeah, that's a favorite. It's new.
But Ohio has a used Petrov. That's the one that I was thinking about. So it just helps to kind of keep an eye on what's currently available and say, oh, I really think you might enjoy this particular tone and touch, which of course requires you to know what that brand's signature sound is, what their criteria is that they're going for in touch and tone. The high-end range, we never get to do this, right? No one's upgrading from a Spinet to a Bosendorfer for the most part, but in the event that somebody wants to drop this kind of money on a piano, that's great. And it's good to know and say, yeah, there's really amazing options. You could also play some of the really expensive ones while you're there, who knows? A really easy way to get this data on Piano Buyer, we've got a pricing search tool, and you can put in grand or vertical. You can put in the which line you want. Entry level is 3, mid-grade is 2, and then high end is 1. So if you have someone who needs to get an entry level, you can put in, okay, we need an upright 3. They only want to spend $10,000 max. So you can put it in there and it'll pull up all of the options that fall into that criteria. And then that's super easy for you to just draft an email and say, you know, of that list, these are the 3 that we have in this area. Go check it out. Additional resources we have besides the pricing search, we've got brand profiles, which is really a pretty thorough company history. We'll talk about, you know, how the company got there, but also what their manufacturing philosophy is, what each piano line is that they produce, the differences between it. This is such a great tool for technicians, and I find that not a lot of people know about it. So if you're interested in a specific manufacturer that maybe you haven't encountered before, head there and you can read all about it. 3 articles that we have that are great for understanding the history of manufacturing. The German piano makers, both of those. One was released in, I think, 2015 or 2016, and then I just published that, the second one last year. And it's a fascinating look at just the globalization period and the kind of choices that these manufacturers have had to make in order to stay alive. Really good education for kind of the Europe side of manufacturing, and then for the US side of manufacturing, Bruce Clark wrote a great, super thorough series on the history of Mason and Hamlin. And that company has been through pretty much every era of piano manufacturing. So it's a great way to kind of get an overview of what was happening over the last 100 years. Our new product news column, we publish, you know, press releases every time somebody releases a new product, a new feature. Follow that column if you want to get up-to-date stuff. And then we have acoustic piano reviews that are mostly done by professional pianists. And that can be really helpful if you have a client who's considering maybe 2 options in the mid-range. Some of us play, some of us don't. It's probably good to just say, here's a review from someone who really breaks down a lot of different aspects of the piano that you're looking at. We do the same as well for digitals. I think technicians should also have opinions on digital pianos. I mean, it's not our area. There's obviously no money in it for us, but I think it's part of the service that we provide to say, yeah, I think this particular brand is doing a great job of really trying to mirror the acoustic piano feel. They've got these sounds which are recorded based on these, you know, types of pianos, and it's really cool to be able to go between both of those different types of sounds. Stuff like that, I think, even though we may hate to sit down and play a digital piano, if you haven't in a while, you probably should. Additional resources, me. You can contact me at all of these places. I'm happy to help answer questions you may have. I know that this is a process that we all do a lot, but I find approaching it with some structure has really changed my approach as a technician, and it's resulted in a good chunk of my clientele upgrading. And granted, this doesn't happen with every conversation. I mean, the times we'll do this, you know, if we do it 5 times, maybe one person ends up upgrading. But I think it's part of what our job is as technicians. It's helpful for the whole industry. And again, in my quest to build bridges between all the distinctive parts, I think technicians do the whole industry a service when we're paying attention to manufacturing and really taking more of an active approach in the sales process. So who has questions or many concerns? Anybody? Yeah.
I'd like to start by saying that you don't have a small voice. You carry through the
Oh, sweet. It's got to be the acoustic. That's great.
That was great.
Thanks.
Thank you for sharing all of that
Yeah.
with us.
Awesome. Yeah.
How often would you say you have conversations like these with your clients?
A lot. I have probably, in the last 8 years, I've probably upgraded 35 of my clients. So 8 years, several times a year. I'm starting to do this more, obviously in my role as piano buyer, I have to know this stuff really, really thoroughly. So a lot of the local technicians will just send people to me because they don't like this presentation, which is fine because I live there and I'm happy to help. So that's just my clientele, but I would say I'm shopping or providing opinions or guidance with someone probably 2 to 3 times a month. Yeah. Oh, yeah, Cal.
Are you being reimbursed for these things? I mean, you set a fee for it?
Yeah, that's always a question. How do you charge for these things? Yeah. So there's always the debate on, commission versus no commission. I've never asked for a commission. That's not something that I want to have really in the picture. The dealers will reward me with bottles of wine, which I'll take all day long. That's fine. I'm happy with that. But I have kind of a framework of a pricing structure, but this is something that, we're technicians. You can do it however you want. For me, if I'm helping someone who's not my client, like if a local refers their client, I'll charge them a consulting fee to help walk them through the whole process. And a lot of times for me, that involves actually going to the dealerships and kind of holding their hand through that process, which is not necessarily going to be a normal thing that everybody wants to do. That's kind of me wearing my piano buyer hat. If I'm just emailing someone, I don't charge for that. Like, I can give 10 minutes. That's not hard, And then if it's my client who, I've been servicing their piano, sometimes this is a 6-year process. I mean, I've had clients, I tell them consistently every year, hey, this is happening and this is happening. They're like, no, it's fine. It's fine. And that's okay. That it's their choice. It's not about like convincing them. It's about providing them with the information. And then 6 years later, they are like, hey, do you remember that time you told me to get a new piano? I'm like, yeah. They said, okay, let's do it. I'm like, okay. So I don't usually charge for that if it's my own client. I've built kind of a beautiful clientele of pianos that I absolutely love servicing because they're young and they don't have issues and they're high quality. And so
you benefit from that.
I benefit. I mean, if I were to add up the amount of tunings that I've done, because when people buy a new piano, they pay attention, they take care of it in a different way than they have ever taken care of their old piano. So it's a consistent clientele, which is great job security for me. They're tuning it more than they would their old piece of crap. I don't even know how much I would have made if I were to add up. If I have done this 35 times, they're all twice a year, it's a lot of money. So that's why I consider, my approach to service, I charge enough for my tuning fee to cover odds and ends and things. So I'm happy to designate that time, especially if it means a more lucrative business. Yeah. Yeah. And I know several other technicians who don't, they've got kind of a flat fee that they'll do, or they'll say it's a percentage of however much the piano is, which I think is a little risky, but.
Well, I always think that if I move them to a better piano, I reap the reward.
Yeah, it makes I'm trying to be happy during the day. I don't want to be working on things that make me hate my job. That's kind of how I started with this, is I really, Kimball's, wow, I hate my life so much. I'm like, why am I a technician right now? So before I started doing this, I made the choice to stop taking brands that made me not want to do my job, because I can't afford that mentally. I have to love what I do, or else I'm going to do something else. So I've been a little more purposeful, and I'm in a market where I have the luxury of doing that. Not everybody has the choice to do that, but thankfully DC is a populated area. Yeah.
How much would you say being involved with the piano buyer has changed your income and changed your job that you do day to day in the technician?
Drastically, for sure. Drastically. I mean, I'm still working as a technician. Piano buyer could be a full-time job. It's really hard to do all of it.
That sounds like it.
Yes, it is. But the two have enriched each other so much. I mean, because I'm always going back and forth. I'm like, do I need to quit one to sustain the other? And I always want to be doing both, because the things that I learn about the piano when I'm servicing it translate into the work that I do with piano buyer. And so I think, unfortunately, I have to find a way to juggle all the things, because I think it's made me a much more well-rounded technician, for sure.
I just want to thank you for being so not only thorough, but so sensitive to all of these topics, especially pointing out that grandmothers
That's a tough one. Yeah.
You can imagine as a dealer, I get probably 20 calls a month
Yeah.
of people who are talking to me about
How beautiful it is. Yeah, it's in perfect condition. Is it?
I almost feel like I'm a little mini
Yeah.
psychologist with it.
Yes.
And you have like to honor the fact that, you know, the memories that you have of your grandma playing this piano, those are in your heart.
Yeah.
You don't have to put that memory
Yes.
in this piano.
Yep.
And I bring up my, if it's appropriate,
Yeah.
I bring up my own experience.
Yeah.
Because I started out on a Windsor spin.
Yeah.
I loved that piano. We all know it was terrible. But I loved it.
Yeah.
And I cried real tears.
Yeah.
And the piano.
Yes.
So
Yes.
I actually wrote a thank you letter to my piano and put it in the bench.
Oh, as a little goodbye. Oh, that's really sweet. I love that. Yeah. Well, that's something there's no conversation in the tech world about this. And I struggled so much with that. I mentioned it earlier, like, you know, we love talking about how to replace flange cords and how to do repairs, but we're business owners, and interpersonal communication and interpersonal dynamics is part of the job, and we have no training on it. We're probably, you know, some of us may be naturally good at it. Some of us might have to learn a lot. I mean, for me, I tripped over my words, and it was so difficult to communicate to people from all walks of life, because, you know, we have to communicate these sensitive things to people that we may or may not know at all or have anything in common with. And so I appreciate you guys coming. I know the topic is maybe not as glamorous as getting inside the piano, but I want to use a space as kind of an open table so that the conversation stays going and we can be sharing with each other. Like, I had this experience and it didn't go very well, and what should I have said? And, you know, I think this is important for us to be talking about.
Of course, I've had this conversation too with
Yeah.
the grandmother's piano.
Oh yeah, we all have.
Yes. And some people are very hard
Yeah.
to get them.
Sometimes
to
nobody's moving. That's,
so my
yep.
question is, do you think grandma would appreciate $20,000 for this piano?
Ooh.
And they'll say, well, we put it that way. No, I said, how about this? How about you buy a beautiful new piano and dedicate it to grandma?
Mm-hmm.
You can put a plaque in there.
Mm-hmm.
This is in memory of my grandma.
Yeah, yeah. That's good.
One that this was her grandmother, and she's like 65 years old.
Yeah.
She wants to give it to her granddaughter. So you can imagine how old this piano is.
Yeah.
It's 120 years old.
Yeah.
Upright. I had the hardest time trying to get her to understand that really you're not going to get a good return on your investment.
Yeah.
Almost become the piano of Theseus at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Now, some of you know how we ended up solving that. I put a rolling keyboard in with speakers.
There you go. That's great. That's very creative. That's great.
The strings out, and
Yep.
I cut through the soundboard.
Yeah.
And put 2 speakers in. And
Yeah.
a rolling keyboard in it. And that's good for 10 years.
I had something similar. Whenever it's a Steinway, that's when it's the hardest conversation to have. And before I was good at this, I had a conversation. It was the mom who, I think it was her grandfather's. It was early 1900s. Definitely a rebuild candidate, fine, but they didn't want to spend $60,000 on it. It could not be tuned. I mean, there was nothing that I could do. And, you know, I was explaining these things, and she was glitching on, but it's a family heirloom. And I was like, yep, hear that. And then I'm explaining more things, but it's a family heirloom. And it's the only thing that she could say in response. And her son, who was set to inherit the piano, was home from college at the time, and he was in the kitchen. And finally, like the 5th or 6th time she said it, he yells in from the kitchen, like, "Mom, I don't want a broken piano. I want a piano that works." It's like, thanks, bud. Gotta go. Let me know how it turns out. Oh. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you can't, you know, and you have to know when to walk away at that point, I guess. Oh, yeah. Hi.
I've had a few more than one situation where the same thing, and piano
Yes. Crafty things. Yep. That helps. Yep. Yeah. There's a technician somewhere in the Midwest, not here, somewhere further that way, who does really great art pieces, furniture pieces, because I think she fixes what she can, and then the ones that she can't fix at all, she'll just repurpose. And I'll have that website bookmarked in my phone, and then I can say, hey, look, there's all these things. Look at what she does. Isn't this cool? And it's kind of a nice distraction for the sadness of telling them it's got to go to the dump.
They don't go to the dump, they go to a
I like saying, usually when they're like, what do I do with it? I say, that's one of the benefits of buying from a dealership, because when you buy a new piano, they can just take your old piano out at the same time. And then without pausing or taking a breath, I'll start talking about the options at the dealership and say, should we go? And then it's like too fast for them to process what I said or question where the piano goes after the dealer removes it. And that mostly helps smooth over the dumpster situation.
Is all your information available at no charge?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
A round of applause for Anna.
Thank you. Oh, I was
The
about to
last
walk
thing I'm
out
going to
with
say
that.
is the same thing I always say. On Thursdays, we meet at Cal's place. We continue to rebuild the same piano. It's been 3 years. We calculated it. 3 years, 3 hours a day, once a week. So if you could make it, I won't share the address here, but it's going to be in all of our newsletters and everything because we're online right now. And Linda.
And there's leftover Buddy's pizza, and I can't put it in my little dorm room refrigerator back there, so please go back there.
Can you end the stream? Can you end the stream, please? Thank you. I just know you know how to do it. Thanks, guys.